Welcome to the SwimStrong Dryland Podcast. We are dedicated to inspiring and educating the swimming world. Our podcast highlights the work, character, and achievements in and around the SwimStrong community. We are here with Coach Asher Phipps from Lifetime Metro. I'm excited to jump into your story, but first we got to hit the rapid fire questions. So Asher, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. First question, what's your favorite movie of all time?
The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, let's go.
And
How about your favorite swim meet drink?
Diet Coke. If you don't have Diet Coke, I am boycotting the meet.
You will not catch this man without Diet Coke on the deck. What's a hidden talent you have that no one knows about?
My memory is spectacular. My late grandmother, she passed during COVID. Her memory was ridiculous to the very end of her days. And I believe I have her memory. I can see something once and remember it forever. Numbers, all of that. I'll tell you what an 8-year-old did, and they're now 19 when they were crazy.
Wow. I'm going to test that. What's your favorite cartoon character?
Archer. Sterling Archer.
Solid. How about your favorite sports team?
All right, so I'm going to start this by saying, Brian McPherson, I know my New York Giants stink. All right, but you'll send me a text on our worst game, and I get nothing when they play okay.
He is like that with sports, man. I get the same thing.
I'm like, God. But it's the New York football terrible Giants.
Hey man, you're a true fan. You say that on a public platform, you know that you're a fan. So if you had to survive on a deserted island and you could only pick 2 lifetime staff members to survive with, who would you pick?
Well, one would be the Queen, Carolina, because hopefully she then brings Luke, who is Coach Dan's new baby. And since he's the baby of Coach Dan and Carolina, we're going to count him as an LT coach. So I'm taking Luke and Carolina. And the rest of you guys leave me alone.
And last but not least, celebrity you'd most like to spend a day with?
Undoubtedly 50 Cent.
It's a good pick.
Undoubtedly. It's been an idol of mine for a long time.
It's a good pick. You'd survive the rapid fire questions, my friend. Awesome job. Thanks for letting us get to know you a little bit in a fun way. But I want to dive into your background and a lot of the things that you're doing right now that people may not know about. And currently, as we're airing this, the Coach of the Year voting is on. You've already been selected not just as a top 10 nominee, but a top 3 finalist, which is absolutely amazing. With some incredible candidates out there, and we're super blessed and grateful to get to work with and serve you. And I want people to know the man behind the scenes, what's actually gone into you getting to where you are now, the mindset and that type of thing. But if you could just share first, how'd you get into swim coaching in the first place? How did your journey kind of lead you to that?
When I started coaching, it was because honestly, I had no job. I had nothing to do. So guys would let me come in and work with them and work with small groups. And I remember one of the coaches we have now was coaching. He was one of the people that helped me out early. And he said, "You're not a good assistant coach. You have to go head something one day." And I wasn't ready to do it at that point. But he told me that many years ago. And I ended up going to a club where I got an opportunity to work with all the levels. And I was then fired after that year. So we went from like 8th to 2nd in that like league. And it hurt. When I got fired, it hurt. And it wasn't because I was like upset about a job, because like you can always find ways to work it. I felt like I let kids down by not doing what I was supposed to do on the other side. And I felt like that's what I wanted to do was coach swimming. And I felt like what I always had to do was be involved in the water. So I came to Lifetime, and at that time, the team, they were trying to do a team. It quite wasn't there. And I just took on the developmental side of the program, which were all the little kids. And I had 3 kids in the pool. And the head coach that was there at the time told me that those kids really didn't care about swimming and that you just had to go run a practice, which I knew I wasn't going to be able to do, but I didn't want to like step on that person's toes and things like that. And the kids were working so hard. And I said, do you guys want to be good? and, and one of those swimmers we graduated last year, in Kayla Shan, at 7 years old, she goes, yeah. And after that, we started our first summer league team at Lifetime, which is the Summertime Dolphins. I swam for the Montclair Dolphins, so that's why we called them the Dolphins. And from there, I became the new site coach. Years goes past, and they give me more opportunity to take over more like regional work with the sites. And today, I have the absolute luxury of running Lifetime Metro. So we're 5 sites, soon to be 6. Red Bank should open soon, but it's just a really cool operation going on. Each site has somebody that runs it. Those are great guys that do that, and they kind of just lean on me for the administrative stuff. And I coach my seniors and age groupers at my site. We get together, and it's a good bunch.
It's awesome. And explain a little bit about what you learned in the process going from the team before to Lifetime. What was the difference between the mentality with those two teams that allowed you to have longevity with Lifetime? And I want to dive more into that too, but what was something that you feel like you learned in that process that helped you be where you are today?
I was a little bit of a madman at the last place. Like if I look back at it, like I used to be like screaming in practice, and winner's mentality, and I kind of never say that today. They didn't want to necessarily be a program that competed at any high levels. They just wanted to have a program and have their little thing, and that's fine. Like that was what they wanted, and we were kind of pushing the envelope of winning. And we went from 40 kids, and they were expecting 150 the next season, which was just too much for them. They didn't want to do that. Lifetime, on the other hand, they were telling me more kids, like, they were like, do it bigger. So we were able to be supported. I mean, Lifetime corporate supports a lot. We see you at junior nationals and stuff like that, and those guys are all for all of those things, and they get excited for the kids and do a lot of special things for those kids as well. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, having the organization behind what you're doing is such a big deal. You can see that either joy or frustration when it's not there or when it is there between teams, and it's not hard to tell the difference. And so we appreciate all the different organizations that support their swim teams because it does take a village to really make a team successful, and that's not something that everybody has. So that's definitely a blessing and amazing to find a spot for someone like you with the mentality of like, I just want to help these kids be the best they can be. But something unique I think about you is that you will always have energy on deck. You will always be having fun with the athletes, the mentality. So I do think there's a competitive mentality, but there's also hey, it's about the people. And can you just talk about what your mentality is today, how I'm sure it's been shaped through the years as a coach, but where did you get the mentality you have, and what does that look like day to day on deck right now?
Yeah. So when I was swimming as a really, really young kid, I swam for a YWCA in Orange, New Jersey, where I learned to swim. And what they really preached was family a lot, to the point that I see these people to this day. Some of those guys are on the coaching staff from when I was at the Orange YMCA. Like we are together people, and we were a bit of a feeder team, and they sent anybody who got a little bit faster, they sent us off to the Y. And at the Y, that's where I was like, all right, well, swimming is competitive, and these guys are really good and dedicated to the sport. So what I wanted to do was bring a little bit of that together. So our program is family based. Our Lifetime graduates, the guys who leave our program, are forever welcome in our doors. But we compete. And I look at guys who are on a higher level, and winning and doing those type of things, and I go, this is awesome. I'm like kind of really excited for those guys. And as a competitor, I think it's only respectful that you want to go after that goal. I'll tell the kids in practice, like, there are trophies at high championship meets. I'll point them out, and things like that. And it was like dreams years ago. And I was like, oh man, it'll be great if we can get one kid to qualify for sectional. That'd be crazy, and today we have 30, so it's like, it's great. But I think a lot of times as coaches, we come into the season and we're bringing in our goal and putting it on the kid. Right. And it's really not that though. Right, Eric? Like it's really their goal.
Yes.
Like, what's your goal? And our job is to support and get that for you.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And in the middle of it, somehow, some way, the brains come involved where you also can pull off your goal for that kid. But like, they're first. And I think that if you create that positive culture around what they're looking forward to doing, and they know that you're there to support them in their journey and their goal that season, then you're able to get more out of the kid. You're still humans, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you are. I think you're hitting on something that a lot of us do get twisted as coaches. Even if we're not trying to, you start putting your, hey, is that Diet Coke?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. If you're not putting your projecting your goals on the athletes instead of putting their goals first, I think a lot of coaches come in with a mindset of, oh, I want to be great at what I'm doing, which makes sense. You should want to be great at what you're doing as a coach, but it's not about you, right? Like, it's about the kids that you're serving. And so what do they want? And if that's number one, that's going to make such a big difference, such an impact, regardless of how far they go. But they're going to be much more motivated too, because it's something that they personally own. And I think a lot of people miss that. But what is it? So you came into Lifetime, and I know traditionally, like, Lifetime swim teams have not been viewed as like serious competitors in the past. And something that always impressed me about you and Lifetime Metro is, like, these guys don't seem to care about that. These guys are like changing the game, not just in the swimming world, but in the Lifetime world. And it seems like setting the pace around the country from an outsider's perspective, seeing that. And so, one, do you feel, is that a stigma that you feel like was true and that you guys are bashing now? And what's kind of that been like to overcome that?
Dude, it is a huge thing that we fought for years. It was a point in time I came on a pool deck and they were like, Lifetime, is that, you mean like the TV channel? And I was like, no. But I always thought the setup was well, like on a large team like ours, our team has hit 600 kids at one point this season. And to be able to service that the right way, you need a lot of people, you need a lot of water, and we end up having that with 5 sites, 2 pools on average a site. There's a coach watching over each practice. I feel like we're able to service more kids the proper way. So I always thought it was going to work as long as we dedicated the concept of team to what we do. And that's what goes first. Team is first. Everything about what we do. Your teammates, you being a great teammate, you make our national team, then you are the shining star of what represents team. And you have to be that at all times. Even when it's hard, and even when they're 8, 9 years old and they're crying after a race because they didn't drop time, but they made a goal cut. I'll tell the kids, how many kids in here want to make a goal cut and they looked at you do something that they weren't able to do, and then you're crying? What type of setup? What are we showing the kids that just gawked at you? So that concept is huge. And then I would always hear people tell me stuff like, well, that's not what other teams do, and I'm like, I don't want to be other teams. I want to be our team and what we are.
Yeah. How do you get that mindset though? Because now hearing you describe multiple situations, even from your previous team, where it's like, hey, they wanted this, but you wanted something else. You wanted to, be great at what you were doing and help the kids. And coming into Lifetime, not necessarily known for swim team, something new that's now changing because of you guys in large part. How do you go against the status quo? How do you have a mindset of like, there's so many other people who fall into the comfort zone and hey, this is just the way that it is, and taking, shots from people left and right of, their opinions of uh, your organization or just what can and can't be done, people in their comfort zone. It's not easy. Where you're understating it right now, but I know from your side how much has to go into that mentally, emotionally, and just the day-to-day discipline. How did you gain that mindset to just be able to go against the grain? Where does that come from for you?
I mean, it comes from my upbringing. You know, everything was always a little bit more difficult than everybody else. So I just put my head down and do. I have a speech and practice every year. I tell the guys, like, sometimes you just have to do. Like, if we want to get better, we want to move forward. I said, you have to go to work one day. You can't be like, oh, I just don't feel like. No, you just have to do. Like, it is what it is. Um, and then again, like you get to this point in coaching, and then you get to this point at a job role, and it's still my mindset of no matter what happens, I'm never going back to not being in that role. So you have to beat people like me with this mindset of there's nobody's going to help me if I fail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to be the person that gets to go, oh, I lost everything and here's a chunk of change or something like that. Like, I'm not going to get that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to win.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell the kids in practice, one day you're going to go against people like me that have to win.
Mm.
It's not a hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my mindset. So when I have people around me that, question whether or not the coaching works, whatever, I just don't care. I'm going to win. And that's why you're talking, because you feel it.
I love it. Yeah, I
But
feel
you
like that's a
can't.
mindset that is really hard for people that have, like, I have to do this thing. And even if you fall short from time to time, which always happens to everybody, right? You fail 1,000 times in a season, but if you have that mindset, like, it's not actually a failure, it doesn't actually stop you. You're just going to get stronger and better because of it. But that mindset reminds me just a lot of like just the mentality of some of the greats. Like, if anybody's watched like The Last Dance with Michael Jordan and things like that, like there's just a mentality that people have who want to be great. And that's something that's not easy to gain. But it is through just doing things, like choosing hard things, right? Being uncomfortable over and over again, and not caring at all what anybody else thinks, which is easier said than done.
Very
But
much
you have
so.
to.
But it's why I don't cheer for underdogs. Like in sports, like guys will
Mm-hmm.
be like, "Why are you cheering for Tom Brady?" Because I know he put in the most work.
Hmm.
I know you may not love that the seventh Super Bowl is coming, but it's not as if he didn't earn the seventh Super Bowl. Like, I know, like when the guy that you're going against is like doing film for an hour and he's done it for 4, and then jumps in with the coach and does another hour. Like, those people.
Mm.
At the end of the day, I'd rather watch greatness. Like, then
Mm-hmm.
it's not a shot to that. It's not a shot to those people at all. Great job getting to where you're going. But when we get to a point, somebody's got to cheer for one team and cheer for the other team. And I'm always going for who worked the hardest.
Yeah.
And I know a guy like Tom Brady did that, or LeBron James, or Kobe Bryant, or Michael. I know they did that. So you know
Yep.
what? Go ahead. Go show the people why all
Mm.
the energy gets spent, and I know that there's coaches around the country and all the guys that were even in this top 10 competition, I guess. But the amount of work these people are doing, the reason why Chris Plum at Carmel Swim Club is unbelievable is because of the work. There's no luck. There's no secret magic sauce as to why Shackle was 150 in the 2 fly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's the work. And I
Mm-hmm.
tell the kids that it's only the work that counts in
Yep.
anything you do in life. And if you fall short, you do all the work in the world and you fall short, the great ones take the loss and they get back up the next day and they start the whole process over again. It's what makes the Olympians unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the amount of people who, when they fail, they give up or decide it's not worth it to go as hard anymore is massive. There are so many people who do that, but the few who don't do that are the Olympians, are the greats. And I don't think a lot of athletes realize that the people who are in the highest, places, they're there because they just didn't give up when they got hit hard over and over and over again. Like, a lot of times it's who can take the most hits and keep moving forward. Like, that's what leads to greatness. And a lot of people just think, oh, they're just so gifted. It's just been all these things were just given to them. And
Yeah.
that only takes you so far. Um, so, but how about as far as the time you've spent at Lifetime now, developing as a coach, developing the program, how have you seen your mindset and philosophy grow and shift as a swim coach? Give us a little insight into just the mind of Asher on the pool deck. What type of philosophy you have when it comes to training the kids in the water, and what that looks like if you're a part of Lifetime swim team.
So we basically we choose to train the races. So whatever race I'm thinking of, whether it's the 200s of stroke or free, whatever, a set will be put together to train that race. I don't do sets where the kids can't, when the kids just don't think anymore. And that's because social media exists, right? So like when you're a kid, think about being a kid today, all news comes to you very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wait for the newspaper or watch the news when you get home. Literally, if something happens, they get it while they're in school. So I personally believe, and it could be completely wrong, coaches, but I think that their brain is trained to get stuff quickly. So if I send them off on 10 500s, it's too long for them. They're no longer processing. And they're no longer thinking about the details of how many dolphin kicks I want off walls or how many strokes per 25. They're not doing that. So I'll break it up. 125s, 200, and back down 100, 425s, 825, whatever, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
writing in the set I want you focused on X, Y, and Z per lap.
Hmm.
Or I want you to count how many dolphin kicks we got to the 15 on the 25s, right? And then when we come into races, what we're doing and what we're practicing is those exact things. You should be able to know how many kicks to the 15, how many strokes per 25 in your 200, your 500, even your 50, you should be able to know. And then we
Mm-hmm.
train the athletes that we have. So if I have a distance swimmer, we'll train a distance swimmer. Most guys are mid distance guys, 200 and downs. So we'll train those guys that way. When Coach Dan came on board, no idea how many years ago, but Dan and I were the same in that thought process. So it was kind of simple to us. It was like, if you want to go fast, you have to practice being fast. Let's be fast. And
Yeah.
but I just don't. And then it's muscle confusion. So many years ago, because I put all the weight back on, but I did P90X,
Uh-huh.
right? P90X was fun, and I dropped down to 175 and was tight muscled and everything. And it was because the concept of that program was changing the muscle groups. So one day was chest and back, next day legs, next day, and then every 3 days you did abs or something like that. And it was confusing the muscles, and which made the process happen quicker. So it's a little bit of that in there too. Let's mess with the muscles each day. Let's see what happens here, what happens there, and I'll watch them during warm up sometimes. And if it doesn't look like the set that I want to do today is going to work, then we scrap it.
Hmm.
I also talk to the kids about it. I'll put together a set, and I'd like it a lot, and I'll be like, hey, where could that set be better?
Hmm.
Because I want them to know their sport too. It's one thing I do love about our program is we got like swim geeks, like we got guys who just love swim. And I think that's also a part of, we just allow that to be a thing. Let's talk about sets. Let's talk about what Todd DeSorbo did in his winter training trip and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They want to be a part of that, and they're really excited to be around those type of people. I think that's part of the philosophy as well.
Yeah.
And positive culture. I mean, that's number one. You set a culture in your practice where every kid can be themselves and train with a group of people that all have a very similar goal, or some may have the same. Then you're going to get a really cohesive group that way.
Yeah.
It makes the job a lot easier.
Yeah, that culture does set everything. When you can train in that environment, it changes the way you think, it changes the way you perform, the way you feel, and in your excitement to be there, right? Like
Yeah.
you can go through some brutal stuff together, but if you're enjoying the people you're around and the environment you're in, those are some of the best memories. Like those are
It
some of the
really
best
is.
memories. But you're hitting on a lot of things too, about essentially like taking a lot of information from different experiences in your life, from some of the great coaches that you've interacted with or seen at different levels, to P90X, to just personal like philosophy and what makes sense when you're looking at the kid, like wanting to pay attention to the details and like, are we getting out of this set what I wanted us to get out of this set, which goes back to kind of what we talked about earlier in the beginning, saying like, let's not project our goals on the kids. Let's make sure that we're keeping their goals at the forefront and looking, are they able to do what I wanted them to do? Because if it's not going that way, there's no point in just forcing that and doing a practice that's not high quality. But I do think that's a newer mindset. Like what you're describing right now is a newer mindset and more of like something I think is hard for coaches to move away from, is like, I got to get X amount of yardage. I got to get X amount of yardage in this practice. And you're like, I got to get quality and I got to train the races that we're focusing on, and we got to swim fast and it's got to look good. So was that always like that for you? Have you seen a change in your swim philosophy over time? Or have you always just been like, it doesn't make sense the way that a lot of people train?
Pretty much, yeah. I did drilling. I do drilling a lot when I was with the younger guys, the super younger guys, and practice would be 25s of drill all the time. It's always been quality. I watched Bob Bowman speak on, if a kid does butterfly and they do 5 strokes and the sixth one is not a good stroke, and leave it at 5, you
Hmm.
know. And I thought that was really smart, and obviously coming from Bob himself, yeah, it's pretty smart, right? But but we just don't do that. Like even in teaching fly, we'll do 4 strokes with little guys. We'll do 4 strokes fly, finish it free, but we want to see your 4 best strokes.
Hmm.
Like what did we learn out of it? I'll ask kids at the end of practice, what did we learn today? What was the point of today? For our younger groups. And for our older guys, we expect them to have their strokes a little bit more polished and things like that. So we end up being able to like really get after it in practice. We do get after it. It's just not mindless. It is constantly me asking, like, the kids will say, Asher, tie me to the 15 on this one. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
Like, I think those guys are excited to do it. After practices, these are the same group of guys. As hard as the practice is, if somebody's like dying in practice, hey, come on, you got it. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. And they go.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of that practice, it's high fives all over the place. And we started that years ago because everything takes practice. You have to practice being a good teammate. What does that look like? You have to practice being, I don't even do team captains because I think that limits our leaders. Yeah. If you want to lead. I'd rather have more leaders in the practice than 2. So if you have an opportunity to be a leader and you want to step up into that role, but if you tell somebody, well, you're not the captain, so they may feel like they can't step into that role. I don't want any kid to feel that way. Step into that role. The more leaders we have, the better we're going to be.
Yeah.
And us as coaches have to lead that way. Us as coaches have to step in, and there's the old method of throwing a kid out of practice, or there's the method of just kicking the kid off the team. And I think that's the easy way to do things. Because you're supposed to be locked into this kid's development. It's not locked into their swimming. It's locked into their development. That means in the water, out the water.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they're being outside of doing something that is absolutely just unimaginable and you can't have that, right?
Right.
But just a clash with a kid or something like that, I think it's my duty to try and get that kid to understand why this is an issue, and to help that kid, as much as I possibly can. And when you do things like that, it's you leading the whole concept, team, family, leadership, trust, like those type of things. Like you're leading that there. I'm not here. I tell the kids swimming is just the vessel that brought us together.
Yeah. Yeah, man. But you're talking about often family and togetherness and culture and development as people. That was one of the major things that I noticed about you and your team from day one, even before we were working together with SwimStrong and Lifetime. And it's something that people want to be a part of. Like that's it's so important. Like you put the people first and really develop people, develop relationships, develop that culture. And so I just applaud you for that. And when you're a coach, I see this too often. People have their egos get in the way. And that is the killer. In my opinion, the biggest killer of people's progress, people's success, people's enjoyment is we let our egos get in the way, whether you're an athlete or a coach. Specifically talking to coaches now, though, like you have never ever had that really as as an issue whatsoever. It's always been about others. And so how do you go about that? Like, why do you learn from other coaches? How do you manage having a big staff with different locations at Lifetime? Like, would you agree with me or disagree or have different thoughts that like humility and setting ego aside and making it about others has been one of the biggest components to your success? Or am I off on that? What would you attribute that to?
I will honestly say I don't know. In that way of thinking, I usually am just more excited for the other guys. Dan was top 50 age group coach twice for ASCA. Like we're through the roof for that. I'd like to see more guys get that. Carolina got her level 3, and that was through the roof for that. Like I get excited about the other guys. So to be honest with you, I have like blindfolders on when it comes to why people want to swim for myself specifically. I know why they would like to swim for Lifetime because it's awesome. But myself, I don't ever really think about that component. The humility portion to it. I just love giving and seeing people be able to find ways to win and be proud of people who work hard for what they do. I just don't look at it any other way. So I don't know. I look at other coaches. I watch YouTube. I remember Mike Bottom. One day I can't find his video anymore, and it's not there on YouTube. But he talked about scoring points for Blue and going into Big Ten championships. Mm-hmm. And Mike's got like all this energy, and he's like, "You score points for Blue" in the video. And I took that. I said we gotta score points. Like summer league, you score points. High school, you score points. College, you score points. And somehow in club mentality, it became, if you don't make trials, you stink. It's like, what? Like where'd the points go? How do we not have points? You can score points. So my I don't really know. I just look at these guys and I take things that I really like from them. It's not just swim coaches. I take it from all sports. Took a lot of stuff from Nick Saban. May he gracefully go. And after that, I just kind of implement it into kind of what I'm thinking about when dealing with athletes. Every kid is different. Every year, the group is different. I tell the seniors from this year and then the year before that, like, take something from the last group that you really like, take a few things, and then add your own sprinkle to the top for this year. But I honestly go through the days grateful. We have a graduating senior. Well, she graduated, Karen Wu, who years ago she used that word. We were in a circle and talking about things going into the new year that we want to think about. And she spoke about gratefulness. And she was like a sophomore at the time. And it kind of just triggered into me, like, that's a word that us as a society need to start to use a lot more, because we all believe we're just deserving and we're supposed to get, and we're not, we're really not. You can work hard for stuff and not get it. Be grateful if you do.
Yeah, no, that's really good insight. I've once heard someone define, I don't know who to attribute this to, but humility not as thinking less of yourself, but thinking about yourself less. And what you're describing is that it's like, I don't know why people, enjoy being a part of your group specifically or my group specifically. You're just saying, like, I just know that I focus on the people and try to do everything I can for them to make them successful. And it's fun to see them accomplish their dreams. And, but that is a rare quality. I wish that, a lot of people could take a page from your book in that one, because it's inspiring. And I'm wondering if there's anybody in your life that you can say has been, I'm sure there's a lot of people along the way who have been an inspiration, but is there anybody in particular, like on your journey, that like someone had an impact on you that made you think, I want to have this impact on others? Is there any one or two people in particular that had that for you?
My parents are unreal. Like, my dad has the most patience I've ever seen anyone in the history of the world have. With myself and everybody around, and my mom is kind of like my rock. She just makes stuff happen. She's been that way my whole life. And on top of that, our family leans on her, and she doesn't fall. Yeah, I mean, like, she's needed for so much, and she never seems to look like she's about to fall or break or anything like that. And it's a quality that in this world of swim is what I want to do, and leading people. There's people who need me all the time, and I just use that strength from her to just not fall.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like there's always people in everybody's life that we don't realize that they had such a big impact. So I want to say thank you to both of your parents, because because of them, you're making a huge impact on me and so many, not just in the Lifetime family, but in the SwimStrong family. Everywhere you go, you're constantly making an impact, and it's easy to see why. And thanks for letting us dig deeper into the behind the scenes of how you got to where you are, what that process has looked like, where your mindset comes from. It's inspiring stuff. Do you have any final things you'd like to say to any of your athletes, the athletes you get to serve, your coaches, just any like piece of wisdom to finish up here?
Well, thank you to you guys. You know how exceptionally in awe I am of all the great stuff you guys have been able to do, and extremely proud. To my athletes, you guys know I love you to the moon and back, and I am thankful for all of you guys' support and the wackiness you guys have on the pool deck every single day. We're going into championship season. You guys know the goals. Let's go after them and swim hard. Give it the best shot we can.
Love it. Awesome. Asher, thanks so much for taking the time with us. We appreciate you and everything you do, brother. Thanks so much.
You got it, brother. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for listening to the SwimStrong Dryland Podcast. If you'd like to be a part of the SwimStrong Dryland family, you can reach out to us via email or social media. You can also follow SwimStrong Dryland on YouTube and TikTok for more educational content.